Hello, good morning, and welcome to a new video. And this one's quite a special one because it's part of our self-care month of March on the Mixed Media and Beyond community group on Facebook. These are a retake, really. I did these a similar project all the way back in COVID, under a theme of collecting badges, like a brownie badge, and these are a similar thing, but about self-caring, and they are going to be part of a swap. So if you want to join in the swap, you need to join the Facebook group. Head to the description below for the links. So I'm starting off with a wooden box full of odds and ends, bits of artwork that I've had left over, bits of paper that I've odds and ends and bits, and I've just ripped them up all into little pieces. And I also showed I've got some not masking tape, washing tape there. You can use washi tape if you want, in bits and pieces if you've got a load of that left over, but I'm going to stick to using these bits and pieces of paper. I've also got some gel matte medium that I have watered down so that it becomes a single cream consistency. You don't want it any thinner than that, and you don't want it any thicker than that. And I have an old brown envelope here. You're not going to need very much, though this kind of gets addictive. We're going to make some Franken papers, which is basically using all of your old leftover papers and gluing them all together to make another piece of paper, a great big piece of background. And we're going to use sewing and pastels and embroidery stitching. We're going to do all sorts of things. And when we get to the various stages, if you're a bit frightened to use a sewing machine or a bit nervous to suddenly get out some embroidery thread and start embroidering, don't worry, because I've got some top tips on things that you can do differently. So you can see here I'm just gluing down on these papers, sticking one bit on top of each other and making sure that every time I stick a piece down, I cover it with gel matte medium as well. That's for two purposes. One, we want to make a really solid piece of paper where all of these little bits and pieces are lying flat, almost like a mono image that you would get off of a jelly plate. So everything is going to be lying nice and flat. And the second reason is that we want to kind of give this a really sturdy structure for what we're going to make later on. So once they're all glued up, you need to put them somewhere to dry. Now, over here in the UK, it's not been very warm recently. So personally, I get some magnets and I pin these up against my radiators and let them dry. So the second thing you're going to need is some shiny pages from a magazine, and you're going to have a scoot through them all and find some little images that could be a theme of self-care. So here I've got the image of a candle. That could be about meditating, or that could be about just looking after yourself, bringing light to the world. I don't know. You have a think. It could mean all sorts of things for you, but you're going to stick that down, pop some sellotape on the top of it, and you'll need quite a few. I really like to make quite a few of these badges. Obviously, with the swap, we're going to give them away. But you also, if you've got a page in a junk journal, you could make some of these and pin them onto a band of hessian or ribbon. That's in fact what I did during the ones we made during COVID. So just meander your way through some magazines, find some images that speak to you, and cut them and stick them up with sellotape. So once you have a good amount of images, and I'm going to cut them down to be the sort of size that I want them to be on my badges in the end. So you don't want these too big, because you're going to want to see all of those lovely bits and pieces of paper that we've used to make our Franken papers. Equally, you don't want them too small. I find when I cut these things out really small, what tends to happen is they lose their significance. They become sort of so small that you can't really see what you're sticking on. So just cut round them in whatever format that you want to do so. And then you're going to get a bowl of warm water. Now, plenty of people have seen or done this image. It's a way to make little stickers, really. You pop your images in some water, let them soak for a little bit, and then you're just going to rub the backs off. Now, you need to be fairly gentle. I find with the really thick magazines that you can get, then obviously you need to give them a little bit more of a go. But actually, some of these that were from, I think, a Woman's Own magazine, actually the backs just slipped off when I took them out of the water. So that was nice and easy to do. So you're just literally just rubbing them off gently until you end up with this very thin, opaque sticker. And the lovely thing about taking this down to its opaque form is that when you put it on top of those Franken papers, you're going to be able to see through it. So some of the pattern and colour that is in the Franken papers behind are going to show through. There you go. You just saw one there just really easily slip off. I couldn't believe it myself, actually. I thought that there were two stuck next to each other. So get all of those sorted and done. And then we're going to move on to the next step. So here's where I'm going to divide people amongst those of you who are happy to sew and those of you who are not. You can see that I've got on my desk here a huge bundle of threads, embroidery yarns, wool yarns, all sorts of different things. We're going to use those later on. But we're going to start now to turn these into little badges. And when I first did this project many years ago, the whole idea was that they would be similar to brownie or Girl Guide badges and were a fun way of adults rewarding themselves for the most ordinary of behaviour. We're going to start off by adding just a little bit of mark making to our Franken papers, and I'm going to use oil pastels to just make some marks and smooch those on so that oil pastel all is on there. You could use felt pens, you could use Posca pens, you could use paint, but you just need something really simple just to start to bring all of those backgrounds together. Can be a really nice way even to save some of these papers in the future for tags, if you want to make some tags for Christmas or birthday card tags. This would be a really good way of doing that. So yeah, just adding some mark making to it however you want to. I'm going to talk a little bit now, before I start sewing all of this stuff down, about using a sewing machine with paper. If you have a sewing machine and you normally use it with fabric, you may or may not want to have a devoted sewing machine for paper. Without question, using paper and glued substances through a sewing machine is not what they were designed to do. And so it's really important that your sewing machine is well serviced. I tend to use a regular sewing needle when I'm using on paper so that I don't get little tiny filaments going through to my bobbin. But needless to say, just be careful. And when I get to the sewing machine with these pieces, I'm going to use my free motion foot. So if you've got a free motion foot, use that. You can see that I'm going to back it with some felt. That's so that when I actually sew it down, you sort of get this embroidered feel to these self-care badges. If you don't have a free motion foot or don't know how to use one, that's fine. You could just sew straight lines all the way over these pieces to get them to lay down. If you don't have either of those and you still want to sew, there'd be nothing wrong with going through these with a needle. And if you don't have a sewing machine and you'd rather stick pins in your eyes, pardon the pun, than sew, what I would suggest you do is get a really good biro, a grey biro pen, and you use it to make little sewing lines all over your piece, just hand drawn little sewing lines. You could even do that with a pencil, and glue your pieces to some felt. I do think that they do need the felt. I think, or felt, or even if you had some sort of thick fabric that you could glue it to, just to give it a little bit of weight. So you can see me here using my free motion foot. If you haven't used a free motion foot and you've got one on your machine and want to use it, get it out, look up your sewing machine instructions. Fast foot, slow hand is the advice of the day. So here are my pieces all sewn down. You can see the crazy stitching easier on the back. Free motion sewing is such fun, especially using paper on it. And I'm going to use the inside of a sellotape ring just to mark some circles and cut all those out ready for the next step. So here's all of my discs cut out ready for the next bit, and I'm going to use a good craft glue. This is an artist's glue stick, not just a Pritt stick. This is my Tombow glue stick. They are brilliant. And I'm going to stick my images down onto these sewn circles. And what you are left with after you've stuck all these down is a very shiny surface, and it would be lovely to make some marks on there. So what I use is a little bit of gel matte medium. You're going to see me doing that in a minute, that I put over the top of each one of these stickers and then let it dry. With all of these stages, before you go to a sewing machine, make sure everything is dry. Before you add any pen mark, make sure everything is dry. Don't do anything on any of these unless your glue is dry. So I've taken these little images to my sewing machine, and with my free motion foot I have just sewn around some of the lines that are on the image and around the side of them. If you again don't have a free motion sewing machine, it would be good to have a couple of stitches in here, even if they're straight ones. And if you don't, then just glue it down, but make sure instead of gluing it down just with a glue stick, you glue it down with gel matte medium, because that will make sure that they are firm and glued and adhered down to their base. So now, as I said, I'm going to put a little bit of gel matte medium over the top of them. That's just to give this a little bit of tooth. It's practically impossible to draw on top of a shiny image, but drawing on top of an image that has a little bit of gel matte medium, or indeed clear gesso on top of it, is much easier. And then all I'm going to do, once that's all dry, is use some gel pens to just make some simple marks on here, just to highlight those images, just to make them stand out from the backgrounds. The next stage, if you have used your machine to sew any of these bits, is to back your badges with a little bit of fabric just to hide all of those the messy stitches, the back stitches. In all honesty, I always quite love the back stitches, but let's make them nice and neat this time round. So we're going to back them with a bit of cotton. If you haven't done any sewing, then you won't need to do this. This is just a stage to really make everything sort of nice and done. And so you put the backing on, and then you sew all the way around the outside so that you get these discs. And now is a time to sit and beautify your badges using some thread, some old buttons. I have a great fondness of heading to charity shops or thrift stores and picking up old necklaces. I think it's the best and most cheapest way to get hold of beads and buttons that you can adorn all sorts of mixed media projects with. So I'm going to cut round these discs and then use a blanket stitch. There's lots of YouTube videos you can look up how to do blanket stitches with. So I'm going to use a blanket stitch all the way around the outside, and in the middle add some beads to it. And I'm going to do that to all of my badges. And then the final thing that I will do is sew a safety pin to the back of the badge. And then I'm done. Now, for those of you who want to join in with the swap, there will be a swap video that comes after this, just to sort of talk you through how to take part in a swap and how to do that easily, and what you need to do in order to take part. If you head to our Facebook group, you will be able to access that video via a link. If you don't head to our Facebook Centre, you won't be able to access it because it will be linked via a particular code that will be on the Facebook page. You can also, if you want to, subscribe to our newsletter, which is via WhatsApp, and all the links will also be in there. I will put the Facebook group and the WhatsApp link in the comments below. But that's our Wellbeing Badges done. I'm really looking forward to hear. Perhaps in the comment you can write down what self-care badges you made. I will see you all soon. Bye.